Let's go ahead and get started. For all of you who are joining here, this is our second of seven Bridges webinars. We had one last week. This is our second one. And if you're curious about the theme of the webinar, it's because our speakers who are here today, along with Paragon One, are committed to building a bridge. And that's not just any bridge, it's a better bridge between education and the workforce. And that's why we're here today, to talk about how to make you a more employable Gen Zer. And with that brief introduction, I want to pass it off to our moderator today, Anna Esaki-Smith. Anna is a Forbes education writer and co-founder of Education Rethink, a research consultancy working with higher education and educational organizations on international student recruitment, partnership development, content strategy, and thought leadership. Anna, she's worked in previously at UC Berkeley, British Council Education First, and she's lived in Tokyo, Shanghai, Paris, Hong Kong, Berkeley, and New York. I think we have students from all of those places here today. So Anna, hello and welcome. The crowd's warmed up. They're all yours.
Great, thanks, Cody. And again, welcome to everybody to episode 2 of the Paragon One summer webinar series, Bridges. The topic is how to be the most employable Generation Zer, a very important topic for young people everywhere, as a matter of fact. And we are so lucky to have an amazing panel today to share their insights based on their work experiences and the work they do today. First, I'd like to introduce Paul Stuart. He is Vice President of the Drug Product Supply Organization at Pfizer, Worldwide R&D. Paul has global responsibility for drug product manufacturing, materials management and sourcing activities, and support of clinical trials conducted globally by Pfizer Inc. Paul is an accomplished and forward-looking thinking executive with many years of progressive management experience within the pharmaceutical sciences sector for global Fortune 500 companies. So Paul also has a degree in chemical engineering from the University of Connecticut and an MBA from RPI. So welcome to Paul. Our second panelist is Steve Bakken. He is a global HR leader in innovation and R&D for Cargill Incorporated. He leads the development of innovation and R&D talent. And during his 16 years, he has had at the food and agricultural goods supplier, he has held a variety of jobs, including those in recruiting and operational HR. Steve has a bachelor's degree in education and geography from the University of Minnesota in Duluth. And also he's a graduate of the executive education program at the business school at the University of Michigan. So welcome to both of you today. Thank you so much for your time. I thought maybe we'd kick things off with sort of a general question. Well, just to familiarize people with your backgrounds, could you let us know a bit about your professional pathways to both Pfizer and to Cargill? And Paul, could you kick things off and tell us a bit about yourself along those lines?
Certainly. Thank you, Anna, and thanks for having me here today. I truly appreciate the opportunity to participate in this important discussion and share my views. So, as a chemical engineer with an MBA, I've been very fortunate to have spent the past 30 years managing a mix of technical and business responsibilities for some really great companies. I started my career at Procter & Gamble in their healthcare product development group, and P&G was and is a terrific company. And while my role was technical in nature, I was exposed to the marketing, advertising, and many commercial aspects of the business in developing and launching over-the-counter consumer products. So really early in my career, I was able to gain a lot of experience and exposure in a relatively short period of time. And this not only confirmed my interest in the healthcare space, but really positioned me well as I moved on to Pfizer. So when an opportunity came up to join Pfizer, it was really a perfect fit, building on my work at P&G and an opportunity to apply that more broadly and directly with the innovative biopharmaceutical space. So for the past 27 plus years, I've held a variety of roles, as you described. I've been very fortunate to work in different parts of the business, including R&D and finance. I've been able to spend time at different Pfizer sites around the world. I actually took an international assignment and spent 4 years in the UK a number of years ago, which was really a terrific opportunity to engage with rest of the world business. Very fortunate to have had a lot of great opportunities through my career, and happy to talk about more of those as we go through today's discussion. So
Great.
thank you.
Great, thanks, Paul. Thanks for that synopsis of your career. Steve, if I can ask the same of you, how can you just sort of map your pathway to your current work at Cargill?
Yeah, absolutely. Can everybody hear me okay? Fantastic. Having a couple technical difficulties getting online, so thanks for having me. Yeah, absolutely. So I can give a little bit of background. So Paul, it's a tough act to follow in terms of introduction, so I'll do my best. But so I have spent my career with one organization. So I've been with Cargill since I started my career, and I started in a few different areas. First started out doing recruiting, more so university recruiting. So calls like this are very near and dear to my heart, kind of getting into the workforce and getting into kind of navigating some of those corporate and nonprofit environments. So started out there, did that for a number of years. And then I've spent a lot of my time throughout Cargill in various HR roles, more with a global focus. So that's one of the things I've appreciated most about the organization, is just having the opportunity to work in global roles with global teams. It's been really exciting. So worked a bit with our finance organization. So did HR for our finance function. Had the opportunity to do a couple of short-term assignments. So I'm also a huge advocate of thinking outside of like traditional role movement and thinking about how, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 months, these kind of this assignment development. So I'd love to talk about that as well. So I was in Belgium for 4 months with Cargill, and then moved back to the US and was in Iowa for a period of time working on one of our field offices with a number of our plants. And so had the opportunity to work really closely to manufacturing, which was really exciting and frankly totally different than working with corporate talent, that sort of thing. And then in 2017, I moved to the research and development function. And so I've worked with our last 2 chief technology officers in kind of an HR partner role, really focused on research, innovation, as well as quality and safety talent. How do we identify talent? How do we move talent around? How do we help create really excellent career opportunities, that sort of thing. So, and then just recently, probably about 2 weeks ago, I took on our HR responsibility for our alternative protein business, which is kind of a budding space within Cargill. So that's me. Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to see what questions and what things come in. So thanks.
Great. Thanks, Steve. And I actually have some alternative proteins in my refrigerator, so I can
relate to
that. And if I could, just in terms of to set up the students for questions later, maybe you both could give me a little bit of a snapshot of an overview of your companies. Paul, Pfizer obviously been in the news a lot for the vaccines, but maybe a broader overview of what opportunities young people might have at Pfizer and the areas that in which you work in. And Steve, I can ask you the question.
Very good. Thanks, Anna. So Pfizer is a global biopharmaceutical company. It was founded in 1849 in Brooklyn, New York. So it's been around a while. Actually founded by a German immigrant named Charles Pfizer and his sadly lesser known cousin, Charles Earhart. So while the company has been in the public eye quite a bit over the past year and a half based on our work with the COVID-19 vaccine, we actually develop really broad spectrum of medicines and vaccines across many therapeutic areas, including oncology, inflammation and immunology, internal medicine, rare diseases. Very large company, employ approximately 80,000 colleagues around the world, and our products are sold in over 125 countries today. We currently have an additional 100 plus new medicines in our R&D pipeline at various stages of development. And exciting for us, for the first time in 2021, Pfizer was ranked as one of the top 10 most innovative companies by Boston Consulting Group technology survey. So we're really excited about that. So really probably the most important thing to know is, this is sort of the ultimate large organization, many geographic locations, many functions, endless diversity in terms of types of roles and types of talent we're always looking to recruit. So, large companies probably have some downsides certainly as well, but one of the greatest benefits is the opportunities created and presented within one company umbrella.
Great, thanks. It's good to know that there is such a breadth of opportunities for young people at Pfizer. Steve, if I could lob that question over to you, I know maybe Cargill is perhaps not as well known in terms of what of its operations. If I'm not mistaken, it is the largest private company in the United States with 160,000 employees. So maybe you could give us a snapshot about what Cargill does and across what industries.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cargill, so just to give a bit of history, we've also been around a long time, founded in 1865. So we have about 150,000 employees globally in about 63 different countries. And so, of course, that ebbs and flows depending on markets and things like that. But we're primarily, we're not a huge branded company. So you probably won't see the Cargill brand. You might see it on a grain elevator if you're driving through the countryside. We do have our name on some of our grain origination businesses, but a lot of the products that go into a lot of the things that you consume, or potentially even the roads and the pavement you drive on, have some sort of a Cargill product in it. So we're very much behind the scenes. Also, diversified company in terms of our businesses. So we're broken up into a few different areas. We have a large food ingredients business, and so we're doing everything from sweeteners that go into a can of soda, all the way to a texturizer that might go into a piece of food that you may eat. I mentioned alternative proteins is another area we're getting into as well. So that's our food business. We also are a very large animal protein business. So whether it be beef or chicken, we do that work across the globe in different areas. And then we also are in the animal nutrition business. So I heard a fact the other day. I mean, it's something like over 100 species of animals that we create feed for, which is crazy. Like I think somewhere within the organization we make alligator feed, which is crazy to me sitting in Minnesota, but probably less crazy to someone who maybe is running an alligator farm. So we also have that. And then we also do a lot of trading. So we have a number of large trading hubs where we're trading grains and commodities all over the world. We're moving products via shipping across the oceans. And so a lot of what we've done traditionally, we started as a grain company, and a lot of what we've done traditionally is moving surplus to areas of famine. So if we may be moving grain from Brazil to Russia, it's a very globally connected organization. I would say, as an organization, we've evolved significantly from when we started. Everything to managing different risk management markets. I mentioned the asphalt piece. We have a large business in Cargill that's working on bioindustrials. And so what we're doing is working to create bio-based solutions through different technologies like fermentation, for example, to create essentially petroleum replacement products. And so just a quick snapshot, if you're working with, if you wear anything that you like to work out in that has spandex in it, spandex is something that's often derived from a petroleum ingredient. We're working to create bio ingredients that might, pull away from that petroleum pull. So that's just one quick area. So it's really diversified, a lot of different things. To your second question, Anna, about opportunities, obviously that comes with a lot of opportunities. So everything from, sales and marketing, accounting and finance, IT, also operations, working in a facility where we're manufacturing things is certainly a career path within the organization. Human resources, HR, engineering, research and development, a lot of different areas. So with a large diversified company similar to Pfizer, lots of different opportunities and pretty diverse set of those. So
great. Yeah, wow. I think between Cargill and Pfizer, our days are full. So great to know the details of both your companies. And now if I can get into the meat of the matter, which is I'm sure what our audience would be interested in, what are the skills, sort of competencies and abilities that you are looking at or looking for when sort of assessing potential new hires? And Paul, maybe I could ask that of you. What are you eager to locate in terms of building the Pfizer workforce? And I know that you're not directly related in HR, but sort of the trends that you're seeing at your employer.
Yeah, certainly. While our business is one that is highly technical and really on the cutting edge of science, a lot of times, a lot of the key skills and competencies we're looking for are actually quite fundamental and maybe won't sound super exciting to the group online, but they really are important. And one really staying element around this is communication skills, and just the ability to engage. Almost everything we do in our organization involves matrix teams with colleagues in different geographies, different cultures. And so the ability to effectively engage and communicate in so many different forums, in email, written form, and what has been the theme over the past year and a half of these types of video engagements, really, really critical. And it is a key enabler to success, I think, especially early on in someone's career. The other one that probably stands out to me is adaptability. Everything in our business, and I think most businesses these days, is changing daily and rapidly. In our case, it's really around portfolio changes. We're developing experimental new medicines. We're learning as we go about how they're performing in the clinic and in human trials. And we're having to adapt our strategies, our technologies, and our development timelines. And so I think a student and new hires' capability to be adaptable, to acknowledge that their secret to success is really being able to pivot quickly to new ideas and new ways of progressing the business, really is critical. And so those are at least a couple of the pieces that we focus fairly heavily on in our recruiting efforts and in our interviewing. And there's certainly many others. I mean, I mentioned teamwork and matrix teams, and certainly any prior experience students can bring through internships, work with professors at their universities, really any even part-time job that demonstrates a problem-solving, customer service and engagement really matters as well. But I would probably point to communication and adaptability as two of the more important ones for us.
Yeah, and I would imagine too, with the pandemic, having to pivot so quickly, businesses, universities, that those skills have become even more important in the workforce. Steve, if I can ask you the same question, what are you seeking in potential new hires with regards to their abilities and their skills?
Yeah. So I mean, my answer won't be as long because Paul covered a lot of them. Yeah, I would say the term I usually use is like transferable skills, right? You've probably heard that term before. Things like communication, collaboration, et cetera. Those, especially coming into a new organization, depending on which area you're in, like if you're going to be an engineer, you need to have an engineering degree, right? But if you're getting into some of our operations management roles, there's no one specific degree that's going to be that ticket in the door for you. You may have a history degree, but you come with a significant amount of those transferable skills. You've shown that you can leadership, collaboration, all of those different things. So I would say that is really, for us too, probably one of the most important things. And then obviously area by area, it comes with, I'll say a technical ticket into the door. We're not going to hire a chemist with a chemistry degree, right? So, but the only couple things I'd add on, I would say resourcefulness, right? So large organizations even a private organization where we're not as constantly watching stock price and things like that, we still are challenged a lot with being resourceful. So figuring out, okay, I have this big project to work and it would be nice if I had all these resources, but I don't have them. So how do I go and figure out a way to get started with what I have? So resourcefulness, collaboration is absolutely critical across large organizations. So being able to build those networks and connect with people in different places that know different things to get a job done is extremely important. And then the last thing I would just throw out that has been ever increasingly important is what I refer to as like outside in. So, what's going on in the world that's going to impact some of the things that we're working on. And another term we use, especially in the innovation and R&D space, is what are we doing at looking around the corner? Like what's coming next? What's going to be the next big disruptor? And how do we get aware of that and start to work on that? And so obviously those are pretty big macro things for sure. But I mean, a lot of it comes back down to the basics, right? The communication skills, the ability to collaborate, teaming, a lot of the things that probably made many of you successful in your university careers as well. So.
Okay, good, great. Thank you for that that breakdown. I wanted to ask you both about whether or not you're having trouble locating some hires with specific skills. That was my original question, but I also wanted to fold in another one. I'm sure there are many students out there who feel they have the skills that you're talking about, but they really want to get the foot in their door. How important is it to you that a graduate graduates from a so-called brand university? We talked earlier about brand with companies and what do you feel about the brand question? So maybe Steve, I can start. I can ask you that
Sure.
question first. So both about whether or not there are certain skills that are lacking in the workplace, and then also maybe about that brand.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, in terms of skills lacking in the workplace, Anna, are you asking like, are there specific areas that are maybe more in demand than others?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot been written about how there are not enough people that know how to code, people with tech skills, AI, et cetera. I'm not sure if that's directly related to your areas, but what are you seeing out there?
I would say for sure that some of that, absolutely. So for instance, we hire data scientists in Cargill, and like everybody in the world that's trying to hire data scientists, it's a tough space to fill. It's extremely high demand skill. So those are all the skills around that, various digital careers. There's absolutely a demand for that. The other place that I've seen a strong skill and demand is around some of these emerging business areas. So I mentioned before our business that's working on green chemistries and petroleum replacements. Skills in those areas that are, I don't know, for lack of a better term, very on trend, right? So there's a lot of discussion around alternative proteins, right? And so having skills in those areas is appealing because those are areas that a lot of organizations are getting into. But in terms of so going to more of the brand piece, so what I would say is we do, in fact, across the organization have pockets where a degree from a university that has a very reputable program in certain areas is absolutely something that's needed, right? Like I said before, we're not going to hire a chemist without a chemistry degree, right? And then at the same time, there's probably a whole myriad of chemistry degrees across the organization. So there is some of that, but I would say in general, there's a lot of positions, given the diversity of our organization and the diversity of our positions, that it really comes back to a lot of those skills that you mentioned. And it's less about which organization or institution did your degree come from. The joke I always make is I think our current CEO right now has his MBA from the University of Chicago. So a very prestigious MBA organization. Our last CEO had a bachelor's degree from the University of North Dakota, which is a great institution, but not one that, you don't put Harvard and University of North Dakota in exactly the same bucket, right? So, but he was probably one of the most brilliant leaders that we've had and really drove and led the organization. So some of that still kind of permeates throughout the culture. So in pockets, branded, absolutely. In a lot of other places, I mean, some of our best, operations and plant managers and finance leaders have solid degrees, solid training, but not necessarily from a really finite list of institutions. Yeah.
No, that's actually good to know that the door is really open to people that come with the skills that are needed, rather than there being a sort of a bar in terms of branded universities. Paul, if I could ask you the same question with regards to if you haven't come across any challenges in locating appropriate talent, and in what areas, and also how are you sort of positioned when it comes to assessing candidates by where they went to university?
Yeah, so agree entirely with Steve's comments around the data scientists and some of the digital skills. That is an important and growing area across all industries. And I think everyone acknowledges just how critical that will be for ongoing success, productivity, and enablement of the business. So we are focusing quite a bit in that area, and those skills really are difficult to come by. So I'll just leave that piece and just underscore, really agree with Steve there. In terms of recruiting, there are a number of probably brand name universities that we do have long-standing relationships with. And some of that does come back to critical skill sets for medicinal chemists and PhD pharmaceutical sciences. There's only a handful of those types of top-tier programs around. And by nature, we have historically done and continue to do a lot of recruiting from those universities. Having said that, though, and looking at the type of growth we're experiencing and the broad base of skill sets that we need, we've actually expanded our recruiting efforts significantly over the past several years. One, based on pure need and necessity, and two, very deliberate and conscious efforts of recognizing the diversity of talent that we can bring into the organization, the opportunity to quickly build new talent pools across all dimensions of diversity, all dimensions of skill sets, and what an incredible competitive advantage that provides to us when we're successful in doing so. So our recruiting efforts recently have really been focused on breaking from some of our long-standing norms, identifying new areas of opportunity, and that is an active program that we have ongoing at the moment. So I do feel encouraged that the profile of graduates that we're hiring, if you look at that today and in a couple of years compared to a couple of years ago, it's going to continue to look quite different, and we're seeing real value and benefits into the business from that strategy.
Great, I understand. And not to put you on the spot, Paul, but what if somebody is interested, if a student is interested in working at Pfizer, what kind of opportunities or programs do you have running that they might check out?
Yeah, so it's quite a large number of opportunities. Certainly many great programs in place across the company, and while these will vary by division, such as finance or marketing or R&D, et cetera, some of the major opportunities would include undergraduate summer internships for students entering their third or fourth years of their undergraduate program. We also hire co-op students for more of the 4 to 6 month work placements. And then, of course, significant programs around postgraduate fellowships programs for PhD, newly minted PhDs and PharmD graduates. Very recently within our R&D organization, we've launched what we call a breakthrough R&D rotational program. And this is a 2-year program that consists of 3 to 4 rotational assignments over for 6 to 8 months duration each over the first 2 years of employment. So this is for newly hired colleagues. But the program is really exciting. It's designed to rapidly grow skills and experience in different areas of the business while focusing on leadership, teamwork, networking opportunities for colleagues new in their career. So we're just launching that now, and there's plans to expand that over the next several years as well. So I think that's going to be a terrific opportunity for new colleagues coming into the organization. And finally, if I can just take a moment to comment, I'm really excited to announce that Pfizer will be partnering with Paragon One to offer a flexible part-time remote externship program this fall and likely another one early next year. So we're really looking to identify a group of diverse and motivated students who are really passionate about supporting our business needs and ultimately and hopefully exploring careers with Pfizer. So we're not at the point to share some of the details of that project at this point, but if you keep an eye out on Paragon One's website and social media over the coming weeks, we'll have more information to share. So just a little bit of a plug for that upcoming program. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for that sneak preview. That's very exciting, I'm sure, for the audience today. Steve, if I could ask you as well, if a student or a graduate is interested in working at Cargill, and you had touched upon it briefly earlier, what are the opportunities they might pursue or programs they should be aware of that to pursue?
Yeah, great question. So we, like many large organizations, we've got a summer internship program as well. With some of our more technical areas like engineering, we do have co-op programs also. And so those are, traditional types of opportunities that we've got. Depending on where you're located within the country, if you live anywhere near some of our facilities, oftentimes there's also other opportunities to in varying ways just get involved, whether it's go to a facility and get a tour, connect in with, there could be like a local partnership with a university where they're trying to, give more exposure to manufacturing careers, things like that. So those are just a couple of touch points, I would say, and connection points. And the other thing that I've seen, which isn't necessarily an opportunity, but it's just, this kind of continuing on thinking about how you're networking. And so if you meet with somebody from a Cargill, right, then, identifying what some of your skills that you're looking to build and some of the areas you're looking to get more interested in, and then seeing where those individuals can point you. They might point you to someone internally to the organization. They might point you to someone externally that they have in their network. One thing I will point out with some of our interns in our entry-level programs, our team that focuses on university recruiting has been, I would say, every year evolving how we source our candidates, right? So rewind 15 years ago, we probably went to a small set of schools. We showed up with our booth and our people and our army, and we said, hey, we have people lined up, and we said, hey, come talk to our recruiters. We still do some of that, but that's changed significantly. So at a number of your universities, you've probably seen the handshake technology where varying jobs will get posted and you can apply in through those. And so we're really working to cast our net wide, right? Knowing that there's great talent that lives in all pockets geographically and all pockets university-wise, that sort of thing. So I would say if you don't know who Cargill is, obviously you can go to the website and you can learn more. And that's, of course, where you can funnel in and you can apply for formal positions and things like that. But yeah, there's a lot of info out there and places to see what types of opportunities. But I would say, yeah, same traditional types of stuff. One other thing that I would throw out that I'll just share because it's personal and near and dear to my heart. But so most of my role covers the research and development function. And one of the things that we're really focusing on doing, it gets more into the spirit of, as Paul was mentioning, a rotational program. We're trying to do it more, actually, not just at that entry level, but across the board, is more of a focus on the job career development. So some of you've maybe heard of the 70-20-10 model. So 70% on the job, 20% learning from others, 10% formal education. And so we can run all of our associates through as many training programs as we want, but that should really only be 10% of that development. It's really about on the job. It's people you're meeting. It's the experiences you're getting. So that's one of the things that just in my space alone, and I'm sure we're doing it in other parts of the organization, we're really putting a focus on. So, which I think is just it's an extension of something like an internship program where you get the opportunity to have that exposure and experience. So just wanted to throw that in as well.
Great. Thank you. Sounds like there are a lot of pathways that our audience can pursue at both your companies. We're about halfway through our webinar, so I thought it might be a good time to dip into some of the questions that students have. There are a lot of them. They're very excited. I have one question from Paige Edwards. It's a question that she has on hiring at both Pfizer and Cargill, having to do with sort of a similar theme about lab work. So maybe we could go to Paige.
Okay, I think that's working. I was wondering, do you hire people to work in, or for Pfizer, do you hire people to work in labs for lab work? What is the minimum degree requirement, and would biochemistry be a relevant major?
Yeah, so thanks, Paige. Great question. And the answer is a resounding yes. We actually have many positions that are laboratory based. And in fact, where I'm based at our major R&D center in southeastern Connecticut, the majority of the space there is laboratory and manufacturing space. So absolutely. And biochemistry is a terrific degree. There's actually a wide range of scientific degrees that lead into laboratory work. Typically, bachelor degree for entry level, not always the case, but in most cases, and then certainly advanced degrees as well. So I think if looking into potential career opportunities with Pfizer and looking at the jobs posting through the Pfizer.com site, I think you'll come across many laboratory-based positions for that type of background.
Thank you.
Steve, did you also want to answer that question about whether or not about lab work?
Sure. Yeah. No, we also have lab work positions that exist within Cargill. I would say in a couple of different avenues, right? So at a bachelor's degree level, certainly, also certainly advanced degree level, and in some cases more of what I would call more of a technician. Sometimes that degree requirement can be met with more of an experience than with a degree requirement. So. Yeah, I would say we have in the United States, our primary research centers in Minneapolis, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but we also have a number of facilities all over the country where we are creating product where we have lab work that goes along with that. So, some of our lab positions are in a lab, but in a lab based in a facility, which adds another interesting dynamic, right? You're on the ground, you're touching the product, you're running lab work on the product. Which is more of I kind of refer to it as more of a manufacturing lab job versus a, white coat research type of a lab job. So lots of different opportunities for sure. The other thing I would throw out if you're getting a scientific degree is this whole area of what we refer to as Cargill, and it's referred to different things, different parts of the industry as technical services. And so where you come in with a scientific degree, you probably do some lab work or some application work earlier on in your career, but what it more moves to as a career for you is more of using your technical expertise to work with customers and work with our sales force to help kind of develop solutions. And so using that technical expertise to then work with customers to say, okay, you're looking for a sugar reduction solution. Got it. Here's some of the things we can do from a technical perspective to help meet you there. And then you work with sales to sell the product. And then you work back with more of the folks that are more in the lab more regularly to, create prototypes and things like that. So technical services, just kind of a scientific educated, but a space that's lab-esque, but not in the lab all the time. Yep.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Paul and Steve,
You bet.
for the answers. And thanks, Paige, for that great question. We have another question from Victoria Washington. And this is actually an excellent one about how to stand out when you're writing your resume. And so, Victoria, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to hand the reins over to you.
Okay. Thank you all for being here and for sharing this wisdom with us. So yeah, I have lots of questions. So you mentioned this idea of being from a branded university versus a no name. I myself completed undergrad in HBCU and now pursuing a graduate degree at an HBCU as well. And so I'm wondering, what can people like me do in order to stand out, right? And also, given the fact that you're looking for communication skills, so many of us have great communication skills. What are you looking for in resumes that help an applicant stand out?
Great question. Yeah, I can jump in first here. Yeah, Victoria, that's a really great question and a tough one to answer in a lot of cases. I mean, I think for sure, in terms of university education, I mean, obviously highlighting your university, that's a great component. I think highlighting things that you've been involved in with university, right? A degree is a degree, but a degree from no matter where you are, but hey, here's where I was involved. Here was my clubs I was involved in, the minors, the degrees, did I do activities, study abroad, like any of those things, making sure you highlight some of those things, because I think that makes a degree more interesting, right? And it doesn't really matter where it's from, right? It's a degree and it's more interesting. So if you're at an HBCU, calling out that it's an HBCU, there's absolutely, I know some of the HBCUs, like I think Tennessee State is an HBCU, but if you read Tennessee State, you may not know it's an HBCU. So putting it on there and calling it out that it's an HBCU is, I think, a valuable component. Really, owning that and putting in there where you attended school. The other piece I would say in terms of making your resume stand out, that's a really tough question, and I would say that's a heavy opinion question. There are some people that will tell you, write a super impactful statement right across the top, and that's what's going to get you that interview. There will be some people that would say, don't waste your time on that. It doesn't matter. So it's such an opinion question. What I always tell people on their resume is create something that gets you excited and that makes you feel good, because that's your tool to show up to an employer. And if somebody tells you to do it one way and you don't like it, it doesn't speak to your personality, you're not going to get excited about sharing that with other people, right? So, and then I would just say, like, crowdsource a little bit, right? Talk to your friends, talk to your people that you know that work in corporations, people that you know that don't, and just get lots of different opinions, and then do what's right and what works for you. That kind of, I would say, generally falls into the mainstream, right? Don't come out of school and have a 15-page resume because it makes you feel good. That's too big, right? You probably haven't done 15 pages worth of stuff thus far. Maybe you have, but so there's some general guideposts, I would say, but 1 to 2 pages, make sure you feel good about it, and make sure a lot of it's relevant. And then the last thing I would just say in terms of resume, don't just list what you've done, list what you've achieved. So don't say you worked at this job and these were all the tasks you did. Like, you do need to list some of that. But I would say also, like, what did you achieve? What change did you drive? What targets did you hit? That sort of a thing. So I'll be quiet, but those were just a few thoughts.
Great, thanks, Steve. Paul, would you like to answer Victoria's question?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and Victoria, great question. And I would definitely trust Steve's commentary, being the professional that he is in HR. I can only speak from a little bit of a narrow window in terms of the parts of the organization I've been involved with. But I would underscore the final point Steve made for us, both from a resume screen and part of our interviewing process. It's really about talking about the outcomes of what you've done. And if you can make that a really impactful component of your resume, it will absolutely stand out compared to, again, this is, as Steve indicated, this is a very tricky space because a lot of it is preference and based on different organizations and individuals. But what stands out to me looking at resumes is more of very crisp, detailed outcomes and impacts of whatever the type of work it is. It doesn't even have to be relevant to the job you're applying to, but outcomes-based emphasis, I think is really critical. And the only other general comment I would make is, and it's a bit of a conundrum, right? You're new in your career, trying to break into industry, don't have experience to point to because you're looking to get your first experience. So how do you deal with that? What I always see as a successful route is really play to your strengths. Don't worry about the experiences you haven't had. Don't worry about the pieces you might not be as strong in. Really lay out what is your greatest strengths or strengths. Exploit those. Bring those over the top, and that will get people's attention. That will tell a lot about you as an individual. Most everything else you're going to learn and grow in your career. You're going to learn once you get there, and you're going to learn from others. So I would say play to your strengths would be one general theme.
Great, thanks, Paul and Steve and Victoria. Thank you for that really terrific question. A lot of great insights there.
Thank you all for answering. Thank you so much.
I'm going to move on to some more questions from our audience. We've got Amia Virginia on deck. So I'll get to Virginia after this initial one from Amia Johnson. She's at Howard University and she's got a question for Steve. So Amia.
Hi, I am Amaya Johnson. Sorry if you mispronounce it, it's all good. I am a rising junior business management major from Howard University from Southern California. And I just wanted to ask, what are some of your favorite news outlets that keep you updated with your inside out or outside in strategy? And this is both for Steve and Paul. And considering that Paul, like Pfizer, you guys are at the front lines of what is happening within the world right now, how do you stay updated on things as big from the pandemic to just, industry-based problems?
Yeah, I can jump in real quick. So yeah, I mean, I would say, Amaya, excuse me. One of the things that I have, I've started doing more of is reading what I would say are more like innovation branded stuff. So reading a little bit of Fast Company is one that I've looked at. I would say in general, I don't necessarily have one specific or a couple specific ones that I seek out. What I really try to do is ensure I'm getting a broad kind of diversity of what I'm looking at. So if I'm going through, we have a system within Cargill that it kind of feeds learning and development and different things. So, looking at things like TED Talks, there's also a number of things out on LinkedIn Learning. There's a few different areas of videos that you can get kind of quick hit types of things. I'll also look at more of, I would say, the well-established business communications, like, Wall Street Journal, Economist, things like that. But then I also, I try to proceed with a diverse filter, I guess you could say, right? So I'm not only looking at, one news outlet every day, right? I'm trying to kind of keep my eye to different things, because I think oftentimes you're going to get different perspectives from different groups, and I think casting that net is important. So that doesn't like really specifically answer your question. I mean, I guess it does on a couple of fronts, but I think it's more just a philosophy of casting that wide net is how I would look at it. But it's a great question.
Paul, would you like to answer Amia's question?
Yeah, certainly. And I would, I agree. I enjoy Fast Company and some sort of more entrepreneurial and sort of innovative publications and news outlets. Majority for me and in the pharmaceutical industry is really probably more around publications, scientific journals, and other outlets that are focused on the farm industry. So it's more of probably a very specific type area. When speaking about general business and trends and strategy, McKinsey publishes some terrific articles, and of course HBR, Harvard Business Review articles are terrific. There's a lot of them, and you really need to, what I found is really need to filter and look for either the specific topic you're going after or something that really piques your interest. Otherwise, it just gets too overwhelming. There's a ton of great stuff out there, but it's just too much for any individual to digest. So I would just suggest being very pointed. What is the strategy or the skill you want to learn a little bit more about, or what type of perspective do you want to get, whether it's an industry perspective or otherwise. So I think there's a lot of great sources, but it quickly becomes overwhelming if you just sort of dive in without a plan. So that would be my comment.
One quick thing. Yeah, one quick thing I would add just to reinforce the comment that I made, and I'll be really brief because I know we have a bunch of questions, is, just consider the sources and keep an open mind to what you're hearing from different areas. So in my family, we have produced traditional beef for years. I grew up on a farm in Minnesota, and now I'm working on the alternative protein space, right? And so there's possibility to feel almost in like a threat environment. But you have the most impactful conversations when you kind of say, I want to listen and hear what you have to say. I want to listen and hear what you have to say. And usually you get to a really interesting place. And I feel like it's probably similar with what you're reading and what you're kind of fueling yourself with. So yeah, just toss that out.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Anna, don't forget to read Forbes, Education, making a plug there as well. We do a lot of coverage there, so a lot going on. Thanks so much for that question. That was actually really, really interesting. We have a question now from Virginia. I'm going to follow up with Elise from Baruch, but first, Virginia Wisdom has a question about work experience. So Virginia.
Yeah, do you hear me? Okay. Well, here in Argentina and the world in general, the job market is very competitive and tough due to COVID situations and economic issues. And I just want to know what are the things you look for in a student who doesn't have any experience at all when it comes to hiring interns, for example, for internships and stuff.
Yep.
Paul, Steve, why don't you take that question first?
Sure. I would say, yeah, so if I'm hiring for, and make it up, an accounting internship or something like that, of course, looking for that accounting experience is something that somebody would look for. But to your question, if you haven't gotten that formal experience, what can you do to continue to make yourself marketable? I think two things. I think one is it goes back to those transferable skills that we mentioned before. So how can you capture, articulate, put on a resume or a CV, like how you've done that, how you've shown up. Could be through a leadership experience that you did through, organization that you were involved in. So, and then how do you amplify that? How do you put that out there? The other thing I would say is if you're trying to get into a certain field and you can't get, sort of that traditional corporate experience in that certain field, look for things on the periphery. So if you're trying to get into, an accounting job, right? But none of the corporate accounting places will hire anybody with, less than a sophomore degree at a university, right? Like, what about the local nonprofit that needs somebody to come in on Saturdays and literally add up numbers of things that they did over the weekend? It's very basic. Might be feel almost remedial, right? But you can take that and you can tee that up as, I got experience working with numbers in a business setting, and you can put that on there. I'm not suggesting you lie on your resume, right? But it's something. It shows that you're working towards the thing that you're interested in, even if you didn't have that window. And frankly, if you get asked the question in an interview, that story of, I wanted to get an accounting internship, I couldn't, so I figured out a way to get some experience working with the books and the numbers, it's a great interview example as well to share. So that's just what I'd offer up.
Paul, how about do you have any tips for Virginia?
Yeah, I would just add, I think Steve's comments were terrific. And the only piece I would add is that be open to starting your career in your chosen industry, maybe as a contract, a temporary resource. And I know a lot of new graduates are very eager to secure a permanent full-time position. We actually hire a lot of contractors. One, because we have very varying needs and demands, so we can quickly onboard additional staff. What we found, though, actually, is that contractor pool has become one of our most reliable and confident talent pools for when we actually have full-time positions to hire. So many of our recent hires were in fact contractors for 6 months or 12 months prior. So just keep an open mind about that. It might not be your first choice, but it actually is a terrific way not only to gain exposure with the company you're working with, but you're also solving your initial problem of not having experience. Now you have experience. Now you can bring that elsewhere.
Great call out.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Virginia. Thanks for the question from Argentina. The next question is Elise, and then we have Danielle coming up after Elise. Elise from Baruch College has a question about both of your the challenges that you face on your job. So I'm going to ask Elise to ask the question.
Hi. So my question is, what would you say is the most challenging aspect about your jobs, and then how would you handle or overcome those challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Elise. I'm happy to start on that one. One very significant challenge for me in my role is keeping the organization fully engaged and focused. We have so many demands. The demands change so many times. Often individuals feel like they're being pulled in many different directions and in many different project needs. So what I try to do in my role and in our organization is ensure that we have very clear views of the priorities. Smaller things may change on a daily and weekly basis, but at a higher level, we know what's important. We know what we're trying to progress, and really just staying focused on those most important deliverables is really key. And I think that actually applies in many different ways, even for a student with many different classes, many different projects, many exams. Really step back and think about what is most critical, what does need to get done, what requires your most attention. And human nature says you put those things off to later because you want to do all the other little, smaller, easier things, but really come back to and maintain a focus on understanding what's most important and staying committed to that. So that would be one example that I try to put a lot of energy into.
Great. Yeah, Elise, great question, and thanks for it. I would say probably one of the hardest parts of the job that I sit in is it's probably one of the hardest and one of the most fun, is just general influence. So in my role, of course, I do, so as an HR leader, I do a lot of, talent movement, talent ideas, setting talent strategy for an organization, that sort of thing. And so there's a lot of influence components that come to that in terms of maybe what I have in my head of where we need to sort of drive things and what my leader has in their head and how are they the same, how are they different. And so needing to identify areas that I really want to push and influence in, both whether it's around almost like a people agenda, or if I see the business strategy in a certain way and I think there's going to be a people agenda that needs to go with that, and I have thoughts, I've got to influence towards that and that sort of thing. I would say, how do I overcome that, or how do I try to do that better? The one word that comes to mind for me is trust, right? So I think when you have in a role like mine, I work with a lot of leadership team groups, both at a certain level and then also with sub-leadership team groups, right? And I've found that the most effective teams have built a good rapport with each other and a good level of trust. And I think that really comes from, listening, and I would say really listening, right? Not just listening to the words, but listening to, okay, what's the actual need behind this? What's the actual driver behind what this leader is asking me? And then I always think about, how do I partner, right? Oftentimes in all of our jobs, we have stuff we need to get done, right? And there's a way to get stuff done, maybe not as effectively, but you can just tell people what to do, or this is what I need you to do. But so often by building that trust, you can either get to a point where it's easier to tell somebody what you need them to do, if that's exactly what you have to do, or you kind of get them there themselves, or they get there themselves just because they trust you and they get it and they want to kind of move in that direction. So influence is probably the challenge, and then really building that trust is how I would say I try to get to a point where I can make that successful. Yep.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Elise, for that question. We are running very close to the end of our session, although maybe we could squeeze in Danielle's question, who has a question about the value of liberal arts majors. So Danielle, and I'm sorry, Paul and Steve, if you can make your answers kind of concise, that would be really helpful. So thanks,
Sure.
Danielle.
Sorry. So a quick question. So I'm currently working towards like a liberal arts degree, which I hopefully turn to like English or sociology. And I'm just wondering, like, seeing how the job market is kind of, or the industry in general, is moving towards like STEM and tech. What is the relevancy of these degrees now, especially in like these kind of tech or STEM companies like Pfizer, for example, and what jobs or careers in these companies utilize the skills and knowledge obtained from these type of degrees?
Great question.
Yeah, I can comment on that. It's a really good question. And while some of our roles by nature are technical and require scientific and technical training and backgrounds, many are not. And I said a large organization, Steve's organization is even larger than Pfizer's. It's just a massive breadth of opportunities in different parts of the business and marketing and different product groups, different support functions across the different divisions. So again, probably for a company like Pfizer, there will be elements of the organization that are very rooted in technical scientific capabilities, but an equal number not. So I think I would just suggest you don't rule out a tech-based company, even if your degree and undergraduate training is not in a STEM field.
Yep. Yeah, well said. The only thing I would add to that, Danielle, is I think what I would say is keep an open mind and think about what motivates you and what you want. So I have a degree in secondary education. I went to college to be a high school teacher. I got out of college and I said, I don't know if that's what I want to do. I ended up keeping an open mind. I found a position at a large company and I did a recruiting coordination job. So I sort of got in and I helped organize recruiting events. It was a job that I didn't need a specific degree for. I think my degree has helped me in that, but I used that to get into an organization and it's turned into the career that I've had within Cargill. And so I would just say, think about what motivates you, think about what's important to you, and then keep an open mind in terms of career, because you could get into a job that's your foot in the door, and it could spin into a marketing career or an HR career. But to Paul's point, there are some careers where you probably won't, become a PhD chemical engineer without that degree, right? But that's okay. We only need a finite amount of PhD chemical engineers. So yeah, that's what I'd offer up. So it's a great question.
Great. Thanks, Danielle. I'm also I have a liberal arts degree, so making a plug for that as well. We're just 1 minute over. I wanted to thank both Paul from Pfizer and Steve from Cargill for a really fantastic, informative session. I wanted to make a plug for next week's webinar. We hope you've enjoyed this session. And so join us next week for the next episode for Bridges. It's entitled Stepping into a Wall Street Career as a Diverse Candidate, and it features the diversity heads of Morgan Stanley and Bank of America, and is moderated by Morsh O, a media consultant who runs the popular Instagram news channel at Morsh. So that promises to be a really informative and insightful session. So thanks so much, Paul. Thanks so much, Steve, for your time today. And I'm going to send it right back up to Cody for a close.
Thank you so much, everyone. We've so thoroughly enjoyed having you with us and sharing this time together. Thank you. And we hope you have a really great Friday and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for being here. Take care, everyone.